Hey guys, welcome back. So another update video here for you. This was a toy bash or a kit bash of a toy with other bits and bobs, and I'm really happy with the finish. As you can see, it's there's a bit more effort gone into the paint job than my usual, but what really brought the finish to the next level was really the use of oil paints. What I did first off was I made the thing, I sprayed it with undercoat, and it was actually grey. So what I did was just did pure white on all the highlights and pure black on all the lowlights, we'll say, where the shadows are going to be, and white on all the highlights. And then from there, just went at it with oils, and it really kind of helps to blend things in. Like, I'm not a super duper painter now in general, as you might see from my previous videos, but this one, with the bit of effort I put into it, I enjoyed it because it really made a lot of difference quite quickly, you know, and it really brought the textures out, because this had a lot of textures added to it with different materials, like this, well, I suppose actual real little bit of wood shield, or this different kind of textured paste, or even this kind of fake fur as the cloak here. And the color choices really just came out of what was, you know, I thought would look well. So it's obviously quite black and white, and obviously the whites are more coming up to cream to yellow at places, but then the blacks have flecks of, let's say, blue in it as well, and that's all oil paint. That really worked out. The base model of it was like a pound shop wrestler figure. I couldn't tell you which wrestler now, to be honest. And the head was a cow, we'll say a cow from a little set of farm animals, you know what I mean? And I just sculpted on top of it with green stuff and other bits and bobs. Like, I think that's a bit of actual, I made a little metal ring, and, you know, a toothpick and a bead, you know what I mean? And that's a little bit of chain. You can see, I think there's, yeah, I have work in progress shots on my Instagram where you can see it in before it's painted, basically, and you can kind of make out the materials, even if it has been covered in, let's say, texture paint and bits and bobs like that. But really happy with the results. Like, this kind of idea was influenced by guys on Instagram and different kind of artists, you know, in the miniature sphere, that will be using the oil paints more liberally, or in different ways, or combining it with this textured materials, just like, or the textured surfaces, just like, I don't know, it makes it really cool or grimy, or it really suits the grimdark. Do you know what I mean? So this guy, there's work in progress shots of this guy on Instagram as well. It's literally just an orangutan figure. You might be able to see it here. Really cheap, little crappy figure. Lopped his head off, and the head was actually from PJ Masks. It's like a kids show in, we'll say, England, Ireland, probably other places as well. And he got a pretty extreme sculpt onto his face, and his ears you might recognize. Catboy, I think. I have kids, I know these things. And he was going to be some kind of squig, but he turned into this, let's say, orangutan creature. But with I really like how the texture came out, and this was just really simply, like I explained with the Minotaur here in the back. As you can see, it was sprayed grey, then full white, just acrylic paint, really crappy, cheap acrylic paint, a few layers, just on the extreme highlights, and then black underneath. So it's just black and white, the extremes, extreme contrast, and then with the oil paint wash over it, there's a tiny bit of kind of reds or browns I added in, just so it's not 100% black and white. And do you know what? I think if I just do his eyes, I'm pretty happy with this, to be honest. I might do add a bit more color to his teeth, but I don't think I'll bother. Like, it's just a different way of looking at the miniature as well. You could get away with it. I think it's like quite effective as a monster, and I might do more to his base, like, but I'm happy with it. Do you know what I mean? I think it brings these toy bashes to another level that potentially, you know, they didn't look great beforehand, but this kind of suits. This guy was a little polymer clay sculpt, and then I did a bit of green stuff for his finger. So he's just kind of a guy made of worms. A worm made of worms. I don't know. Just, I thought it was fun. So his head is kind of Artworm Jamie. Artworm Jim, if anybody remembers that. Yeah, so that's him anyway. Some other things before I jump onto the Spuigs. These were finished up before Christmas. And same thing again, there's actually, on my Instagram, there's kind of a work in progress of how I made these and kind of steps and stuff. Nothing amazing, just little mushroom men. And it's a whole little regiment of them as well. I don't know. I thought they were quite cool. I think I sculpted them while, like, watching telly, because they're super simple, you know, the bodies. And then the hands, the arms are actually EVA foam. because, you know, they don't have any digits or anything. As you can see on the connection here with the big guy, where is it there, to his body, you can kind of tell it's not great, but there's a regiment of little mushroom men. I mean, you could easily enough do an army of them without even thinking. You know, if you're watching telly, you're forced to watch some crap on telly with your wife you don't really want to watch, but you can still sneak in some sculpting at the same time. I don't think she watches these, it'll be fine. But yeah, this whole little regiment of guys there, and like I said, it's on my Instagram for the step-by-step, but it's nothing amazing, like, you know what I mean? It's a piece of paste, really. What else do we have here? So we've got some trees in the background. So these are from, I can't remember where I bought them, probably a pound shop. And I was like, wow, they could be turned into some kind of cool scenery. They're not fantastic scale-wise. I think the small ones are a bit odd scale-wise. So here's my 28mm lady that I have handy. I don't know. Is that realistic for a young tree sapling? Would that be the term? I don't know much about trees. But this one is fine. Like that's decent sized tree. But they're kind of work in progress with putting some flock on them, and I'll probably spray them up again after this, and then probably airbrush them to paint them. But the flock is just to add texture to the base, as well as add more kind of foliage texture to the actual branches, and hide the glitter as much as possible. So I think that's the big part that's annoying. The base is Foamex. I've told you about this stuff before, lads. It's class. Just check it out. Your local kind of sign makers might have some cut-offs and stuff like that. You could go annoy them and search in their skip for bits and bobs. And there's a bit of fibre as well here on the bottom. There's coconut fibre, and you can see the hot glue there as well. But that's then we'll move on to the next one. And last but not least are having fun with squigs. Squigs are always fun. So these are some sculpts. Same thing again. That's very, very blue actually on the phone here, but yeah, as you can see, running squig. You know, you get some armature, you get some tin foil, green stuff, and then some polymer clay over it. This is probably some of the cheapy polymer clay. Then again, I've yet to do his feet because they're a bit tricky, so I've just not done them yet. Is it honestly? But yeah, pretty cool. Working on this big guy. He's not been cooked yet. Big squig. I really like his proportions. I have to do a lot of the detailing and his kind of signature smile, looking quite mischievous. I might change his. He's kind of doing one eyebrow. He's kind of doing a rock eyebrow. He doesn't really do that anymore, does he? He's too busy making billions, I suppose. And texture up his back and his little spikes and everything like that. But he should be quite cool. Some other ones that are actually finished, kind of a classic looking squig. Apart from he's quite, I suppose, fat. He's well fed. His teeth dots again. He's finished, I'd say. Like, you know, if I'm going to stick him on a base or not, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if these are going to be, you know, sent to Curtis or how he's fixed or what, but I haven't chatted to him about it. But I might just fire away and actually just paint them up myself. This guy was a bit of a rush job because he kind of fell off his handle. It wasn't great. I didn't have him attached properly, so I might have to do some more texture onto him. But he's kind of a extreme expression there with one big eye and his teeth. Then to go again with the squigs, these are just getting tiny, aren't they? There's a little tiny squig. I don't know if that would cast or whatever. This guy actually I'm pretty happy with. This little Cyclops squig, we'll call him. This guy, I got some little beads for Christmas, and with, you know, of Santi, of course, because they've been good, and just used for eyeballs and stuff like that, and they're quite cool. So I don't know. I think they're fun to make anyway, if nothing else. Last things then, see if you recognize this. Obviously the baby version. Put in the comments if you recognize what this is. Same thing. I was like, oh look, I have these little beads, I may use them. And sculpted this up there the other day. I was doing a 5 Leagues in the Borderlands delve, and I was fighting giant bugs, and I was like, oh man, I could make some of these. I only made one in the end before I had an opportunity to play the battle, but it went well, so I'm not bothered. And I might make more of these then. Super simple to make, just a lump of polymer clay and these little beads. These are added in after. They're just little, they're actually bits from the trees. They're like the foliage from the trees that I pulled off and kind of snapped off of some of them, and that's their little feelers. I think in the movie there's a clue, or the manga, they are like pincers or whatever you call them. But yeah, a few of them would be cool. Like, do you know what I mean? If I had, well, say you need about 10, I'd say, to have a decent amount for use. You know, be it in an RPG or whatever. Last thing then, silly sculpt. To be honest, this is a Oh my god, I'm actually blanking. It's a caterpillar. Yeah, caterpillar. Originally, I had this thing half sculpted for ages. This is cooked now, and I have to give him extra legs on these two roundy bits here, and on that side as well. Um, Caterpillar. I had him sculpted, and he was sitting up there, and he was doing nothing, and he was going to be some kind of displacer beast thing. You know, he was some kind of cat, but then he slowly turned into this. And you know, it's not exactly symmetrical. It's not perfect, but I think once it gets paint on it, I think it'll be pretty cool. Once I do his extra legs, and he's got little claws and everything. It's really just his cat head, really. That's quite feline about it. I didn't even give him a tail, but yeah, he'll be fun to paint up. But it's really the having the handles and the polymer clay and stuff is just so chill for. It's just what you need to be able to sculpt anyway decently, like do stuff like this. Like you'd never be able to do that with, you know, even if it's a bit cork, you could do it a cork, you know, decent bit. But if you're trying to hold it in your hands, this is not going to happen, lads, you know. But yeah, I'd say if you're looking for, do check out my Instagram, because like I said, there's a few of these things that I'm quite bad with the social media and stuff, to be honest, and keeping up with it. But this kind of stuff was influenced by Instagram, so I'd say check out the different kind of artists, you know. Spread your wings. It doesn't all have to be GW stuff. Do you know what I mean? There's a whole world of fucking cool minis out there. If you're into this kind of sphere, there's so much to delve into. And even then, stuff that's kind of beside it, between scratch building and combining it all, you can come up with some really cool shit. Like, so that's it. That's another one for another update. And let me know what you think. You know, like and sub and all that if you want, or you know, try some of this, lads. Try the oil paints. Give that a bash. And, you know, the rest of the stuff. Good luck. I'll catch you next one.